Hi, so someone, I think it was Morgan, if that's not your name, I'm really sorry, was asking me to do a little bit of a tutorial about how I do cuts and pinks for 16th century dresses. So this is just going to be a quick run through. If you're not familiar with them, cuts or pinks are like little slashes in the material. And basically people were showing off that they could afford to cut up their fancy fabric because it was really expensive, and so if you could cut it up, that was a sign of wealth. There's also this idea in the 16th century that a fashion trend was started by the Landsknechts, the German mercenaries in like the 1520s, having cut up and slashed up clothing, so that was a big fashion trend. So the things you need to do this my way, this is not the only way of doing this, but this is how I've been doing it, are a cutting mat. Mine is from Joann's, I think. These are useful. Having one around is nice. I only got one recently, but I'm really glad I did. I am using a buttonhole chisel. This one's just from Clover. I don't know what... it's 12 millimeters. But other people sell them. I think the Tudor Tailor has a set of these that are specifically meant for pinking. This is meant to cut buttonholes, but it's what I have. And then you'll need something to hit the buttonhole chisel with. I am using a rubber mallet because I have one and it's less loud than pretty much anything else you can use. So, yeah, let me show you how I do this. Okay, so I'm just going to demonstrate this on a bit of scrap fabric. You need to figure out, first of all, how you want to lay out your design. Because obviously there's lots of different ways of cutting things like this. And you need to figure out what kind of spacing you want to use. So once you've done that, you need something to use to line up. I've got a ruler. On the actual sleeve, I usually use the lines of trim as a guide because they're straight across. And one of the really important things is that if you're doing cuts or pinks like this, is that you want to cut them on the bias, because that way they won't fray as much. Obviously, if you cut them on the straight grain, that'll fray a lot. So you just take your chisel, let's try and actually get this in the middle of the frame. You place it on the bias, doesn't need to be perfect, and just thwack. And then however far apart you want the next one to be, place it again, thwack. And so on and so forth. It very quickly is no longer very interesting. But you can see this works pretty well. You get very even cuts that are all of the same length. I know a lot of people like to use an X-Acto knife because they feel like they can keep it sharper than a buttonhole chisel. I just like that this makes cuts that are perfectly the same length every single time, and I don't have to worry about anything sliding around or making cuts where I don't want it. It's just really very simple. Here you can see a couple of patterns that I tried out earlier on this little bit of scrap fabric. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, Morgan, or whoever asked for this. If not Morgan, again, I'm sorry. And I hope this helps you with your fancy 16th century projects.